The first time I saw her, she was covered in engine grease, her auburn hair tied back in a messy bun, and her hands deep in the guts of a malfunctioning plasma conduit. She didn't notice me at first, too focused on her work, muttering curses under her breath in a language I didn't understand. I stood there, my translator implant buzzing faintly as it tried to parse her words, but all it gave me was a series of fragmented phrases. "Stupid piece of junk," and "Why won't you just work?" I cleared my throat, the sound echoing softly in the cramped maintenance bay of the Interstellar freighter. She jerked her head up, her green eyes narrowing as she spotted me. "Who the hell are you?" she demanded, wiping her hands on a rag that was already stained beyond recognition. "I'm Kael," I said, bowing slightly in the traditional greeting of my people. "The new engineer. Captain Voss assigned me to assist you." She snorted, tossing the rag onto a nearby workbench. "Great. Just what I need. Another rookie to babysit." I bristled at that. "I'm not a rookie. I've been working on ships since I was old enough to hold a wrench." She raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Yeah. Well, this isn't some backwater cargo hauler. This is the Starblade, and if you screw up, we're all dead." "Got it." I nodded, swallowing my pride. "Got it." Her name was Lieutenant Mara Voss, the chief engineer of the Starblade, and she was the most infuriating, brilliant, and beautiful creature I had ever met. Over the next few weeks, I learned to keep my head down and follow her lead, even as my fascination with her grew. She was human, a species I had only encountered in passing before, and everything about her was different. Humans were loud, impulsive, and emotional, traits that my people, the Zorathians, found baffling. We were a quiet, reserved species, valuing logic and order above all else. But Mara was a force of nature, her passion for her work and her crewmates shining through in everything she did. She laughed easily, cursed like a seasoned spacer, and had a knack for solving problems that left me in awe. And then there was the way she looked at me. First, I thought it was just my imagination. Zorathians weren't exactly known for their charm, and I had always been more comfortable with machines than people. But the longer I worked with Mara, the more I noticed the way her gaze lingered on me when she thought I wasn't looking, the way her cheeks flushed when our hands brushed as we passed tools back and forth. It wasn't until we were stranded on a remote asteroid, waiting for rescue after a botched mission, that everything changed. The asteroid was a barren, lifeless rock, its surface pockmarked with craters and jagged ridges. Our shuttle had crash-landed after a malfunction in the thrusters, and while we had managed to send out a distress signal, it would be hours before help arrived. Mara and I sat huddled together in the shuttle's cramped cabin, our breath fogging in the cold air. She had her arms wrapped around herself, shivering despite the thermal blanket I had draped over her shoulders. "You know," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "this isn't exactly how I imagined spending my day off." I chuckled, though the sound was strained. "Neither did I." She glanced at me, her green eyes searching my face. "You're not scared, are you?" I hesitated, then shook my head. "No. I trust the crew. They'll find us." She smiled faintly, her teeth chattering. "You're a terrible liar, Kael." I looked away, my cheeks warming. Maybe a little scared. She laughed softly, the sound sending a strange warmth through me. "Yeah, me too." We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the faint hum of the shuttle's failing life support system. Then out of nowhere Mara spoke again. "You know, you're not like any Zorathian I've ever met." I blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, her gaze fixed on the floor. "I don't know. You're just different. You're not all cold and logical like the others. You actually seem to care about people." I felt a lump form in my throat. "I do care," I said quietly. About the crew. About you. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. Me. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. Yes. You're important to me, Mara. For a moment she just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, to my astonishment, she leaned forward and kissed me. It was a soft, tentative kiss, her lips brushing against mine in a way that sent a jolt of electricity through my entire body. I froze, unsure of how to respond, but then she pulled back, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry," she muttered, looking away. "I shouldn't have." I didn't let her finish. I reached out, cupping her face in my hands, and kissed her back. It was clumsy and awkward, my inexperience painfully obvious, but it didn't matter. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the cold, not the danger, not the vast emptiness of space. There was only her. When we finally broke apart, Mara was smiling, her eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. "You know," she said softly, "in my culture we don't usually do this kind of thing lightly." Frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "I mean, if we're going to do this, it's not just a fling. Serious. Are you okay with that?" I felt a surge of emotion so strong it nearly overwhelmed me. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "In my culture we have one mate for life. And Mara, you just chose me." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked almost afraid. "Are you sure?" I nodded, my voice firm. "I've never been more sure of anything." She smiled then, a radiant, joyful smile that made my heart ache. "Good," she said, leaning in to kiss me again. "Because I'm not letting you go." When rescue finally arrived, we were still wrapped in each other's arms, the thermal blanket draped over us like a makeshift cocoon. The crew teased us mercilessly, but neither of us cared. We had found something rare and precious, something that transcended species and cultures and the vast emptiness of space. And as we stood together on the bridge of the Starblade, watching the stars streak by in a blur of light, I knew that I had found my mate for life.